Greetings, Dr. Jeff Spencer here, and a milestone moment in this year's event, the tour, is that I'm headed to the airport right now to head back to the United States to see my family, friends, and get my feet planted back on the ground, and I'll hit the pavement running when I get home. An amazing event. So my initial impressions are, right now, is I'm glad that I got everything packed on time to head up to the airport. That's always a good start. You never know, to be accountable for all the things that you brought. Sometimes you're surviving from moment to moment. There are things all over the place that sometimes get put back where they shouldn't. And one of the cardinal rules from the Champions Blueprint is that you got to put always everything back where it is. You got to reestablish that baseline as quickly as possible to mentally download, so that you're confident that you know where everything is and it's going to be there when you need it. And was able to manage that tactic successfully here this morning. Had a great party last night with the team and saw some of the people I haven't seen in a long time. Saw Lance, which was always good, and some of the other people that have been part of the legacy of which this tour was now part of. Very interesting experience here, and looking forward to getting home, being on the road for a month with 25 people, different personalities, different ways of looking at things, is an amazing human spectacle. And I've always said that the tour is the ultimate life clinic, where in 23 days you will be exposed to every situation that you will face in a lifetime. And that's why the Tour de France is the ultimate case study, to be able to understand what it takes to make things happen, what needs to be applied when to win, and expansive life development to become the best that we can be, to be of service to ourselves and others, and create our personal stamp on the human legacy is really the name of the game here. And I really feel like we met that objective with flying colors, and we met that through adversity, not through the successes hoped for. And that's the way life is. You've got to show up with every expectation that you're going to win. And when you know that you're prepared and you have a strong team, you have every right to feel like that, because the champion's golden rule is you do the homework and the test is easy. And that was for sure the case this year. But then there's this X factor called fate and life's rhythm. And certainly life is bigger than us, no matter how we try to control it, to resist it, to manipulate it. Ultimately, in the end, it always wins. We are always subservient to that. And only it knows the rules of what, when, where, and why. And those remain elusive to us oftentimes, and that's the way it was this year. We had our team in the first 10 days absolutely decimated with unanticipated crashes, and 2 severe concussions, broken collarbone, severe back injury, 2 crashes in 2 days. Another person got sick with a systemic, meaning global body-wide infection, because of the severe trauma from crashing 3 days in a row. And talk about the tough of tough. That's what the tour is. It's about stepping up, and talk is cheap, and getting the job done and finding a way. And that's a lesson we all need to learn. It's not like you can go back and sleep it off like a bad date. It isn't like that. Once you're in, and you got to see it through till the end. And the most impressive thing about this event is there are people that show up as rookies, and they leave hardened veterans of the battle, and they know what to do, and their level of self-confidence is beyond description. And to me, that's the most important prize of all, is people getting a sense of self-determinationism, getting away from things being outside themselves, which of course they are. They fully understand that, but yet we have a lot more control over life than we believe we do. And there's got to be a life structure. You can't just make it up as you go, until such time as you have the foundational elements. Then that's what the Champions Blueprint is all about, is sharing those tactics so they become part of the fabric of everyday life, and how we respond reflexively to life. In life, things happen so quick, and the only place where action takes place is now. And if we don't have the now reflexes, we don't have the time to learn it or think it when we need it. It's got to be there. It's got to be part of our hair trigger response to life. And that's what the Champions Blueprint is all about. And it takes time, effort. We're going to go into a tunnel of darkness here, and sometimes we do find ourselves in tunnels, but I'm going to keep talking here, because the good news is there's always light at the end of every tunnel. And with the structure, that's the scaffold that life's painting is created on. And it's a journey that isn't a straight line from A to Z. It really has all these different detours, and those detours and which directions they head with these forks in the roads are all determined by our readiness and our preparedness, and how fast we learn the lessons and create and implement the strategies that allow us to move ahead with confidence and certainty to be able to create a life of purpose, meaning, passion, of course, and also prosperity. And yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel as we're approaching that. And really what the light is here as we pop out the other side of the tunnel is our belief in a better tomorrow, and that's what keeps us moving forward. That's part of what the human spirit is all about. The human spirit loves diversity, it loves challenge, it loves excitement, and the tour is where you find all that and more. And again, the blessing of this is what it teaches us to be able to live our lives from a position of strength, where we make our decisions on what we stand to gain, not what we stand to lose, which is an offensive way of embracing life rather than a defensive, reactive response to life that can only be at very best second best. It's impossible to be a leader or someone that shifts paradigms unless we can combine things in new ways by remaining a student of our discipline, by being able to embrace risk and control fear. These are all elements that are necessary, and we can't wait for these changes to happen because we'll be waiting forever. We have to create these changes by a daily devotional and dedication to that commitment, to be able to learn and enact and apply these different tactics a la the Champion's Blueprint, so that we have a life readiness. Life readiness is everything, and as I've said, that 90% of what we prepare for in life never happens anyhow. It's really about being able to interface with now and being able to capitalize on its inherent opportunities and reduce the risks. That's really what it comes down to, and that's all a matter of preparation, and that's really the lesson. And I hope that with the tactics that I have shared with you over the last 23 days and more, with our preview and now with our follow-up to the Tour de France, that you really get a sense of empowerment, purpose, and direction and structure for you to be able to take your life to another level. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. It's about passing on to others the skills that are necessary for them to be the best that they can be, and then they have to pass the baton on to others and create a contribution to the legacy of the human drama that does make a positive difference. And none of us are passive in terms of our contribution. It's either going to take us to a better place as a whole, or it's going to take us to a worse place. And all of us do count, and all of us do have a voice that needs to be heard by at least someone. And you never know who that person is. It may be the person that you don't even know is listening. That's why we always need to dedicate ourselves to being the best that we can be and always taking the high road. And we can't live life in isolation. We're not meant to. Part of our purpose is to engage in team and with others, and that collective interface where creativity and exploration meet the advice and the wisdom of our friends, our mentors, and others that have preceded us. That's where it all happens. And those are the things that we need to make as part of our daily nutrients, is that impulse and that drive to complete cycles of action that we're built for. We've given minds, bodies, and brains for a reason, and that's to do something productive with it. It's not to be a passive bystander or spectator. We're meant to be active participants, and the people that are active participants are always the happiest people. The people that have forgotten their purpose and have no reason to get up, that's the moan and groan society. Those are the black holes of humanity, that nothing's ever right. If it were only a different world and people understood me, it would be better, it wouldn't. It's about us understanding us and taking the responsibility of constructive action to be able to bolster up our weaknesses, which we all have. None of us are perfect, we never will be. Part of the human drama. But yet, if we don't surpass and replace our human blueprint, that tendency to whine, that tendency to be a little bit lazy, that tendency to be driven by fear, if we don't replace that with the Champion's Blueprint, where we take an authoritative stance in life and we're proactive. We get out there and we put our feet on the pavement every day, and we engage, and we trust the process, and we, with complete confidence and with 100% willingness, apply ourselves towards every moment with a singleness of purpose to engage that moment at the highest level. Then life unfolds in a very dynamic and a very exciting way that the mind and body love. They hate sameness. They love diversity and challenge. That's really what it's all about. And I hope that you've taken many things, and please refer back to these tactics on a regular basis, because it's like reading a book. Every time you go back and you reread the book, it says something different to you, and you wonder, well, why didn't I see that the first pass through? It's the way it is. We weren't ready. And as I mentioned at least a million times over the course of our 23 days here, that each fact that we learn, every experience that we have is not just one experience. It adds to the whole of our life's experiential reservoir, our pool of information and knowledge, and it changes the entire way that we look at life's opportunity and on life itself. And unless we're out there on the edges testing ourselves, we don't know who we are. And anybody that believes that they're living a fear-free life and they've got it handled, they're the ones that are living life too much in the safe zone. It's, again, not possible to move forward unless we're out there testing ourselves on the edges and the fringes of what we believe we're capable of, and we're capable of a lot more than we believe we are. We just don't believe it. And that's why it's really important to expose ourselves to people, places, and things at the edge, and where we say, I can't do that, well, that's the place you need to be on a regular basis. We need a steady diet of that because we're capable of a lot more. We just need to realize that through our own experience. And usually when we step up, it's always, well, gosh, if I known it was going to be that easy, I would have done it decades ago. Well, that's the famous last words from humanity when it's ruled by the human blueprint, which needs to be transcended. We need to look at it through the eyes of the champions blueprint. What champions do, they listen, this is so easy. The champions have already told us what to do, because they're not going to do anything that doesn't work. We just need to study the model and dissect it and learn the action steps to change our minds and our bodies, those memories, so that it becomes our normal daily life response pattern. And that's the way that it's done. So please refer back regularly to the champions blueprint tactics just for review, and make that part of your daily, weekly ritual, because none of these tactics self-perpetuate. They all require maintenance by application and refinement by application. And unless we do that, just like a muscle, they start to atrophy, then they become useless and non-productive. And we start to then lose ground to life's opportunity, because life speeds along without us. We get dropped, in a sense, we get spit out the back of the peloton and going backwards unless we engage. And as soon as we get over that myth, we never get to a point where life self-perpetuates. Forget it, never happens. And the whole myth of retirement, forget it. That's the moment where people's decline into relevancy begins. It's an absurd notion. Certainly we could transition into other levels of productivity through the labors of our efforts, yeah, for sure, and that's got to be rewarded. But on the other side of that, there's only so many cooking shows you can watch, so many rounds of golf that you can play, so many tweets, so many trips to the BlackBerry or the iPhone to look at our instant messaging and things. There's only so many trips you can make to that before you drive yourself crazy. And if you go crazy, you're going to take everybody down with you. And that maybe lasts a week or a month, and then all of a sudden you got to get back to something purposeful and meaningful, and let that begin with your constant commitment to refreshing and boning up, so to speak, on your champions blueprint tactics. And may these tactics put purpose and meaning into your life so that you can live with greater passion and prosperity. So this is Dr. Jeff Spencer here, saying once again, thanks for coming along for the ride. I'll have a couple of more updates here, a couple of more tactics I got in me, I know that, to kind of finish up our journey here together. But until next time, saying that this is the first step in our putting closure on our 23 plus days together. So may your days be filled with prosperity and purpose, and may you work the tactics from the Champions Playbook. And until next time, as always, ride big and ride strong. We'll see you on the road.